Hey everyone. So this video is going to pick up right after we finish donations tax. And what you're going to see in this video is that we're going to start looking at something called estate duty. Now, the key things to remember with estate duty are the following. Once again, just like donations tax, it is a separate tax from normal tax. It's something that is calculated on its own. It's calculated when you die, and it's calculated based on the value of all the assets that you own when you die. Okay. So just remember some key things when you get later on in the course. Estate duty is the tax that happens on your own when you die. It is different to the tax of a deceased estate, which is basically the tax of everything that happens to your assets after you die. That's like a normal tax calculation. This is a specific tax that exists when you die. The reason this tax was introduced, it is a good way to basically tax high net wealth individuals. Again, if you're dead, you can't fight the tax. So your family might, but that's another story. Some countries still have this, some have gotten rid of it. It's not a huge source of income in South Africa. And again, people used to try and get around it by donating the assets before they died, hence the introduction of donations tax, as well as certain other schemes where you could donate or contribute the money to provident funds before you die, but those loopholes have been closed. So right now what we're going to look at is just the basics of how estate duty works, what it's all about, and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to do this quickly. We're going to make this full screen. And yeah, this is where we're at. These slides continue after the donations tax slides. Firstly, the key thing, estate duty is found in its own act. It's not part of the Income Tax Act. It comes in your big purple books after the Income Tax Act, after the VAT Act. And if you have a look, you'll see that it starts on page 489 of the Purple Acts. It's not very long. It's probably only about 10 to 15 pages. Introduced in 1955, so you can see it's been going for a while. And this is the act that deals with estate duty when you die. Now, the way it's set up, the key things we need to look at. Firstly, what they're going to have to do is add up the value of all your property to see how much tax you have to pay. So we need to see firstly, well, what is property? What is deemed to be property? How you value this property? And then also certain deductions. So certain types of property or certain types of expenses are going to reduce the value of your estate. Okay. So the most obvious place to start off is just the general and just say, well, estate duty happens when you die. So what you're going to do is when you pass away, you will have this calculation done and we'll work out the tax. Estate duty is done once off. So it's only done when you die. It's not done multiple times. And it's a once-off tax. So they work out how much should be paid, and then that needs to be paid over to SARS. How much needs to be paid? Well, it's payable based on the value of your deceased estate. Obviously, less allowable deductions. And what that basically means, it's the value of everything you own when you die. 20% of that is taken as estate duty. You are allowed an abatement that we'll talk about later, which reduces it. So you're only going to actually pay estate duty on assets above 3.5 million, just in case you get worried. But if you have a lot of assets, it can add up to quite a lot. At the same time, estate duty increases from 20 to 25% on estates worth more than 30 million. Now, this should be sounding very familiar to you because of donations tax. Remember, donations that exceed 30 million in your lifetime after the certain date are at 25%. Well, now what we have, if your estate is bigger than 30 million, the excess portion is at 25% and not 20. Okay. It includes all property and deemed property that you had at the date of death. And here's something important. For SA residents, it's based on your worldwide estate, so assets all over. And for non-SA residents, it is South African property only. Now here's something very important. For South African residents, SA property only. And remember how that is somewhat different to donations tax. Donations tax was only on residents. So if you're a non-resident and you have SA property, you might want to get rid of it before you die to try and get it out of estate duty, and it's not going to be subject to donations tax. Okay. Little point at the bottom line is going to be cut off, I can see, but what it says, there's no definition of a resident in the Estate Duty Act, and because it's a separate act to the Income Tax Act, the whole idea of the physical presence test can't apply when looking at estate duty. The only way you will determine residency is through ordinary residence. Okay, so remember the differences here between estate duty and donations tax for non-residents. The overall process, how it works, what you're going to do is take all of the property that you have and all of your deemed property. You're going to add them together. That's going to give you the gross value of your estate. You're going to take off your deductions, certain types of expenditure that's allowable to be deducted. Will give you the net value of your estate. Where's my mouse go? There we go. You then take off your abatement. That is similar to rebate, but not quite the same. That's going to be 3.5 million. Gives you the value of your estate, and you multiply that by 20% or 25% if a portion exceeds 30 million. That will give you the amount that is payable. Great. So let's talk about some of the specifics. Property, found in section 3.2, says that it includes all assets movable, immovable, corporeal, or incorporeal. If you can find something that doesn't fit one of those two, good luck. So basically, it's everything that you have, assets, cash, intangible assets, whatever it might be. It also includes any limited interests in property that you had at the time of death. So if you owned a fiduciary duty, a fiduciary interest, bare dominium, usufructs, anything like that, as well as any annuities that you held at the time of death. Okay. Just careful for the annuities. Again, I'm sorry, I'll try and fix it on the, or maybe I can fix it now. I can sort of fix it. There we go. I think that fixes it. And annuities held at the time of death. So the key thing here, this is an annuity that you have that can be transferred to another person. If that annuity stops when you die, obviously there's no asset because there's nothing further coming in. But if you can transfer that annuity, then you're going to have some kind of property. Great. Gotta get back there. Awesome. At the same time, there's certain things that you don't have as property when you die, but they're deemed to be property. So the most obvious one here is a domestic life policy, what it's called section 3.3a, an insurance payout on the death of the deceased. Now, maybe it's best to just take a little bit of time to talk about life policies. I'm going to make it big so you can see me. Life insurance, often sometimes called long-term insurance, is insurance that you take out. So what you do is you pay monthly premiums to an insurance company, whatever, Discovery, can't think of others now, Old Mutual, any of those companies. And then what happens is when you die, they pay out a big amount of cash to whoever you tell them to pay out the cash to. The key thing here is that in most situations, when that happens, that money that is received is going to be included in your estate. So if they pay out 4 million, even if it's going to whoever, your brother, your sister, your wife, in most circumstances that will go into your estate and you'll have to pay estate duty on it. Okay. Might seem a bit unfair, might seem a bit weird, but again, think about it. If somebody was close to dying, they could stick a lot of money into life insurance, even if it had huge premiums. And when that money is then paid out, it wouldn't be subject to estate duty. So there are possibilities of a way to escape it, which is why any payouts from life insurance are included. Some other things you need to know about life insurance. You can't just, well, let me start this way. It doesn't make a difference who the payout is going to. It's going to be, as a general rule, included in the person's estate who died. So you might think, well, this is a bit weird. I could take out life insurance on a random person, and then when they die, they're going to have to pay tax on it. And you'd be right in thinking that's a bit weird. But the rule is you aren't actually allowed to take out life insurance on anybody other than somebody who you have what's called an insurable interest in. What that means is you can only take out life insurance on yourself or your family or someone that's dependent on you, or any of those people can take it out on you as well. You can't take out life insurance on a random who's got nothing to do with you. Okay. It might sound very morbid again, but think of the possibilities. If somebody was a murderer, I'm not a murderer, I promise you that. But if you were going to murder someone, you could take out life insurance on them first and then get the payout. And, it's just a way that wouldn't work. Maybe a bit of a story just as a way around this. Quite often in America, what you have is situations where people are maybe sick, they're dying, they need money for healthcare, but they don't actually have the money, but they have a lot sitting in life insurance. So when they die, they'll get the money, but it's no use to them before they die because they can't use it. So people came up with schemes whereby what you do is you actually sell off your life insurance policy to somebody, and they will pay you a percentage of that in cash now, and then they will get the full portion when you die. It's not fully legal. It can be a lot of help to people, but obviously it then creates an incentive for the person to die from the other party because they want the money. So it's very mixed sort of things. It happens on the black market sometimes, but theoretically not something that is legal. Anyway, now that you know a little bit about life insurance, what we have is this. Any domestic life policy, so payout that you get, regardless of who gets it, if it's on your life, it goes into your estate duty, but there are the following exclusions. Here we go. So any policy paying to your spouse or your child, and it's as per an antenuptial or postnuptial contract. So that's any kind of contract you entered into with your spouse or your child pre or post your marriage. Second one, any policy taken out by the partners or fellow shareholders. So if you're part of a business and your partners, if you're in a partnership, or your shareholders have taken out a life insurance policy on you, and these are some more requirements. It wasn't taken out by you, so it was taken out by them, and you paid none of the premiums, okay? And they intend to use this policy to buy your interest in the company or partnership. In those cases, nothing will go into your estate duty, provided your shareholders or your other shareholders or partners took it out. You don't pay any, or it wasn't taken out by you. You pay no premiums, and they're going to use it to buy your interest in the company or partnership. The third option, if the policy was not taken out by you or required to be taken out by you, so somebody else is taking it out, okay, you paid no premium on this policy, it's not payable to your estate, and it's not payable to any relative or any person maintained by you, the person who died, nor at any time was the person who took it out a family company of you, the person who died. So no company that you owned or owned by your direct family. In those cases, okay, what you need to think about is this is going to be not included as deemed property, okay, and will not be part of the person's deceased estate. What this is basically talking about, if for some reason somebody takes out a policy on you, but you don't get the money and it's not for any of your relatives, I don't know how they're able to take out this policy because they wouldn't have an insurable interest, but if they are, it's not going to go into your deceased estate. Okay. Then the last point doesn't relate to the point above, it relates to all of the previous points. If any policy is included into your deceased estate, it can be reduced by all the premiums paid in the life of that policy and interest on those premiums, but only if it was paid by the beneficiary. Beneficiary is the person receiving the payout. So what that means is it can never be the person who died. What it means is if your brother is receiving the money and he's the one who paid the premiums every month, he's going to be able to reduce that amount, or you'll be able to reduce that amount by the premiums that were paid. So the amount that will go in is actually going to be less. We'll do some examples of this, but the key things to take from this, what we have, any policy that is received will go in. It won't go in if it's paid to a spouse or child as per contract, if it's taken out by shareholders or partners and you meet those requirements. If it's taken out by somebody else, they pay, and none of your relatives or you get the payouts. And in all cases, if an amount does go in, but somebody else paid the premiums and they're the one getting the payout from you, they can deduct the premiums and the interest on those premiums.